Welcome back to the Highway with Kyle Shutt. I am Kyle Shutt, and I am so proud to announce Mr. Ben Ward, the lead singer of one of my favorite bands, Orange Goblin, on the program today. The baddest band from the Great Britain. We're going to talk about being lifers for rock and roll, meeting our heroes, getting all crazy messed up on alcohol and drugs. Don't let your kids listen to this one. If you like what you've been hearing on the program, hit that follow button, push on that subscribe tab. You do anything you got to do to make sure that you don't miss a single episode. And if you want to go one step further, you can find us at patreon.com/thehighway. Get yourself some rad perks like early access to next week's episode, a virtual guitar lesson from me, help me put a 6-pack of beer in the fridge, all kind of stuff over there. Go check it out. We also got to give some mad love to our sponsors, Heil Sound, because if you like the way I sound, it's because there's a Heil right here in front of me. Some people want to talk about Bach, but I want to talk about rock. Let's do things my way.
The Highway.
How you doing, Kyle? How's it going?
I'm doing fine. God, it's good to hear your voice.
Yeah, you too, mate. You too. It's been a while.
It's been too long. I know. I was trying to think the last time I saw you. I think it was back in 2015. I think that was the last time that the Sword actually made it over to London.
I think it might have been, the Underworld that time.
Oh, man, the Underworld.
Yeah. That's one of the things that I don't miss about London, I got to be honest. The fucking smell in that place.
Yeah, you're out in Cornwall now, right?
I am, yeah. Me and my wife moved down here January, and we're loving it. We're 5 minutes from the sea.
That's like the real medieval country, right? Like a lot of history out there. I mean,
we're right down in Celtic Cornwall. Yeah, there's loads of old forts and beautiful, like, eroded coastline and tin mines and things like that. It's very, very old school and traditional here. But I like that. It's a complete contrast to what I'd had in London for 30 years. So, as I say, it suits me down to the ground now. I can be at the beach in 5 minutes. I can be in the city in 25 minutes if I need to go and get shopping and things like that. So, got the best of both worlds here.
Yeah, man, that sounds lovely. Well, man, thanks so much for coming on the program. This is just my excuse to get some just hilarious and awesome stories out of everybody for lifers. I mean, you've been playing music forever. I think Orange Goblin got together in the mid-90s, right? 95, something like that?
Yeah, I've been doing this band over half of my life. It's been like a prison sentence. You don't even get 26 years for murder these days. So I don't know what I've done to deserve it, but I can't complain. It's been a brilliant ride. You know, we're similar to how you must be, Carl. And when you're bored and fans of music, what else is there to do but form a band with your friends? So
exactly,
that's how it started. We were sitting around drinking too much, listening to Sabbath and Trouble, and just said, why don't we have a go at doing this? And here we are 26 years later, been all over the world and met wonderful people like yourself. So, I've no regrets, and I don't think anyone else in the band does, because we still love it. I still feel like a teenager when I'm on stage, and I still get that same buzz that I did 26 years ago, and that's what it's all about. The day that goes is the day that I guess I'll stop doing it.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. Seriously. Whenever the Sword was sort of forming, kind of before we got together, maybe like 2003, Orange Goblin was one of those bands that I just absolutely loved, and I think it was between the Big Black and maybe Iron Maiden, Peace of Mind. There was this band called Hammers of Misfortune that had an album called The Bastard.
I remember.
Yeah, and maybe like The Floor, a self-titled album that came out in like 2000 or 2001. Yeah. It was like those 4 albums for me personally was just like what I was trying to like boil into a pot and like come up with something. So always been a huge fan. And I wanted to ask you, I mean, you just talked about Sabbath and Trouble and stuff like that, but what were some of the more like kind of, underground bands that kind of like made you want to scream your head off for half your life?
I guess sort of being in the UK in the mid-90s, there was a band called Acrimony from Wales that played kind of stoner rock, but in a more Hawkwind sort of way than the Sabbath way. It was really kind of long, drawn out songs with just repetitive, heavy riffs over and over again. I loved them. I saw them around London quite a bit. There's a doom band called Mourn here at the time that released their first album through Rise Above Records. Obviously, Electric Wizard was one of the underground bands that we shared the stage with a lot in the early days. And, you know, the thing with Orange Goblin is that we all have such diverse backgrounds. Chris is, you know, we grew up listening to lots of Black Flag and Minor Threat and a lot of sort of crusty UK punk bands like Discharge and UK Subs, that sort of thing. Joe is your stereotypical 70s rock and blues guitarist dude. He grew up listening to like Albert Lee and BB King, and then like transgressed to Jeff Beck and Eric Clapton and Jimmy Page, so those type of guys. And Martin and myself were always into, you know, straight up metal, Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, then Metallica, Slayer, and then more death metal stuff. We really loved, you know, Napalm Death, Obituary, Carcass, and even Venom and Bathory. I was really into extreme metal as well. I still am to this day. So we just sort of, when we got together, it was kind of a mixture of everything. And as I say, in the UK around that time, those bands like Solstice and Cathedral, obviously Lee Dorian's band,
Absolutely,
was a massive influence on us, and that's you know how we came about meeting him and initially releasing our records via Rise Above Records. So yeah, there was a great deal of stuff. I was, you know, like you mentioned Sabbath, that Ozzy was obviously a big influence and made me want to sort of front the band, as well as Lemmy as well. So you know, there was a lot of influences in that at that time.
That's rad. And I loved when we first started touring and got the chance to go overseas. I was just so stoked to meet Lee Dorian and Bill Steer and everybody, Carcass and Napalm Death and Cathedral were just, I was a huge fan of those bands. And it was, I just remember it was like 2006, like hanging out at the Crowbar, and just Lee Dorian like got kicked out because he was too drunk. I was like, it's like he's the real deal.
Yeah, I mean, Lee was. I mean, first big European tour we ever did was in 1999 when it was our first time on a nightliner, sharing a bus with Cathedral, and we did something like 8 weeks around Europe with them.
Dang.
And Lee Dorian wouldn't roll out of bed until about sort of 4 in the afternoon, 5 o'clock when he was due to go into the venue and sound check. And yeah, then, you know, after the show, it was game on, and Lee can drink. Believe me, he can drink, and he, you know, he must partake in other substances as well when they're around. So, you know, he taught us a lot about partying in those early days, Lee, and he's still, you know, a stand-up guy. He's just opened a new record shop in London, which I can't wait to visit.
Awesome.
It's, like you know, a nest of all the greatest records ever made, and first presses from Japan and things like that. So yeah, I'm keen to go and see that. But yeah, Lee's a great guy, and as you say, those days going back to the Crowbar after a show and everything, that could have happened on any given night in the week back then. Everybody and anybody used to go to the Crowbar, and you know, have Dave Grohl turn up, Kelly Osbourne, or you know, you guys, and we'd always be in there. It was great.
I miss those days, but that's okay. It's did it move? Or I know the original one closed, but is there a new one?
The plan is, I think, Rich is still looking for a new location. They made the money to sort of put down a deposit on a new place and get it restarted again. But when that's going to be, I don't know.
Yeah, right.
You know, fingers crossed. And he's looking to put a live venue in there now as well, because, as you know, it was tiny before. And although they did put on some bands on the little stage at the back there, they weren't really sort of a full PA or anything. Yeah. But I think that's what he's hoping to do now moving forward.
Oh, God. I remember Jason Landrian from Black Cobra. We did a tour with them over there. And as he was walking up those really steep stairs that went down to the bathroom, he slipped and busted his whole mouth open. Like, oh, God, I just remember, like, being way too drunk to be able to deal with anything, and then turning around and singing through
so many people fall down those stairs. It's insane.
Oh my God, it was awful.
You do like a death trap, especially after a few beers and a few shots.
Yeah,
I think Will Palmer, that used to work at Rise Above Records, kicked Kelly Osbourne down there one night when he'd had a few too many. And she'd made a comment to him, and he sort of stuck his foot in her back and gave her a little shove to get down there.
Jesus Christ. Oof. The old days. Well, I wanted to ask you because, obviously, being in a band from the States is a lot different than being in a band from London or anywhere else in the world. It's just such a huge area that we have to cover here. And then every band has to have a van, to start with at least, and then you can maybe work your way up to a bus if you get there. But it's phenomenally expensive to do over there. What's it like getting a band together in London? Where it's, did you ever have your own van, or did you just rent things as you went along?
Yeah, we've never owned our own vehicle for touring. It was always a rental job, and being in London is actually it's a bit of a blessing, as opposed to sort of the regional bands in other little towns, because London's one of those cities that every band comes through. So, you've got promoters here and many venues that are always looking for support bands. And in those early days of Orange Goblin, we were fortunate to get tours with like Queens of the Stone Age, Fu Manchu, Unida, Nebula, Monster Magnet. Whenever those guys came through town, Orange Goblin was the band that they called up to support. So it helped us in a big way in those early days. And yeah, anytime we ever went on tour, it was a case of hiring vans. I remember the first time we did the US, we did it in a van, just one of those simple, I don't know what you call 12-seater vans with a U-Haul trailer with all that gear in it. Everybody trying to get comfortable in the back, sleeping on the merchandise, that sort of deal. I'm sure you're well aware of. And it was brutal, that first US tour we did. It was 2002. We had Alabama Thunder Pussy supporting us, and they were great because they'd done multiple tours in the US previously, and Eric Larson's well-travelled guy. He helped us out in a big way, gave us a lot of advice. But we did 38 shows in 39 days, and it's just that, as you say, the US is so vast that you can't prepare. Coming from England, you can't prepare for the differences in temperature and climate and things like that you experience. It's like we arrived in New York to start the tour, and it was sort of like 5 degrees or something. We're like, well, this is freezing. What's going on? And then in the space of like 10 days, we're in Houston, and it's like 106. So we're like, what the fuck's going on here? So yeah, it's a real big learning curve for us. And actually, I think one of the reasons our original guitarist Pete quit the band was because of that first US tour. It was just so grueling, and he'd had enough. We came back from that, and he was like, you know what, I'm out. I've done everything I wanted to achieve. You guys crack on, and I'll see you later. So yeah, unfortunately we lost Pete along the way, but I wouldn't change those days, those early days of touring the hard way. Getting kicked out of the venue for doing coke in the toilets 5 minutes before you're due on stage and things like that. You can't buy that sort of experience.
No, you can't. You learn a lot about yourself, when you're just forced to, live like a wild animal. Every day for 6-8 weeks, however long it was. I remember we took Graveyard on their first ever U.S. tour. It was there was just 5 Swedes in a van. And they had no idea what to do. It was so fun watching them just kind of figure out how to tour the U.S. Gave them a lot of advice.
Yeah. We had the same thing, really. You go from these sort of metropolises like L.A. and Chicago and New York, and then 5 days later you're playing in Bozeman, Montana. Mm-hmm. And there's sort of four skinheads showing up to the stage wearing sort of right-wing shirts and things. You're like, what the fuck's this now? Uh-huh. It's completely different. But, as I say, there was a great learning curve for us and experiences that held us in good stead for when we went back to the US later on.
Exactly. And I just love the situations that you end up finding yourself in when you just keep touring forever. You know what I mean? Like you never know where you're going to end up and like what is going to happen. And I think that sort of that's what I like to romanticize about it, is just, I think that's why I keep going, is just because like, well, mate, let's just do one more tour. You never know what kind of goofy shit we're going to get into. Has there ever been any like just any of those moments for you where you're just like, I cannot believe they let me in here,
Yeah, I mean, at them sort of, you go to places that you never even thought you'd ever visit when you're a kid. I mean, through Orange Goblin, I've been to Japan and Australia and North America and Russia and all over Europe countless times, and it's just what are we doing here? Playing in places like Ljubljana in Slovenia, where you walk into a venue and there's still bullet holes in the walls from the Second World War. And going to Ireland, Northern Ireland, with a name like Orange Goblin, and the political situation over there was very eye opening. It's they all sort of mold into one. But I'm like you. I love the kind of adventures that you have, the unexpectedness of it. You never know what's going to happen. No two tours are ever the same. Every country's different. Everybody treats you differently. But that's the beauty of touring, is you get to experience all those different cultures, different languages, different people, and see all sorts of walks of life. And it makes you appreciate what we all have.
It really does. I've always said that there's nothing that will shatter your bias like traveling. I wish more people would hike around the world like that. I know we can't really do it right now, but still,
I think it would break down so many boundaries if people just sort of experience a bit of life outside their own country.
Well, the saying is never meet your heroes, but I think that's bullshit. I say always meet your heroes, and I know you've met probably every hero you've ever had. I don't know, but is there any either of those experiences that really stand out to you, that you were like really glad that you met your heroes, or any that you wish you hadn't?
No one I've met has ever really sort of been a big letdown and been a disappointment. Some of them have been just as crazy as you'd probably imagine them to be. Like the first time I met Ozzy was must have been around 1999, and I'd been invited down to a TV studio where he was appearing on a rock orientated quiz show, and there was like a panel that featured Ozzy Osbourne, I think Des Fafara he's in Devil Driver now, but he was in Coal Chamber at the time, and a couple of other guys, and Ozzy was there, and I got to speak to him, and I went up and asked him for his autograph, and he had to ask me how to spell orange. He's wearing these bizarre odd stuff, but he was an absolute sweetheart, really, really cool guy, and really accommodating, took an interest. I think James Hetfield was the one I was probably most nervous about meeting when I first did. I think you was there actually, when we were
at the O2 in London, right?
That's not when I first met him. I met him after that, I think, when we did the Soundwave tour together in Australia.
Oh,
and that first night of the tour in Brisbane, they held that barbecue with all the bands and everything, and like James and Lars were walking around shaking hands with everyone and having conversations. And me growing up a huge Metallica fan, that was quite daunting for me, but he was cool. Me and Lars bonded over our mutual love of new wave of British heavy metal, which was nice. Phil Anselmo's always been a real nice sort of guy to us and a close friend. I used to worship Phil, especially when I first got into metal, and Pantera was one of the bands at the forefront and everything, and he was like an idol to me. And then getting to meet him and him having a mutual respect for Orange Goblin as well was great. And I remember we kicked off one of our US tours in New Orleans at One Eye Jack's one year, and we ended up staying at his place out in the swamps there in Louisiana, which was kind of mind-blowing. First time I met Dave Windorf from Monster Magnet was awesome. He was another guy that I'd seen, playing in London around 95, just after, I think it was just before Dopes to Infinity came out, and I'd always sort of looked up to him especially as a vocalist and a lyricist. His lyrics to me have always been amazing. I don't think they get as much credit as they deserve. But so to meet Dave Windorf was always a pleasure, and and just as I say, it's not. I think as well as I do that within this sort of genre of music that we're all involved with, you don't really get that many dicks and arseholes, because they'd be fucking slapped down and told to sit down and put in their place if they had any sort of ego. And everybody's just appreciative of what we've got and loves, like we've said, they love traveling, they love meeting new people and hanging out, and we all have a mutual respect for each other's music and what we do, and that's always great.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And two, I don't know if anybody out there knows this, but whenever there is a massive festival that Metallica's a part of, they always, the day before the festival, throw this big barbecue as a party to like bring all the bands together and just introduce themselves and things like that. I mean, they're about the biggest heavy metal band in the world, and they're also the most generous people out there. I mean, they didn't have to do that. You know what I mean? They don't have to do anything that they don't want to.
Exactly.
They genuinely are music fans and care about bands being taken care of and treated with respect. And I don't think that gets talked about enough because everyone has their own shitty opinion about fucking Napster. And anybody out there, if you're on Napster's side instead of Lars's side, then just fuck you. I don't know how else to say it.
Yeah. I mean, people find it far too easy to knock Lars Ulrich, but I forget about what an amazing kind of footprint he's left in the history of heavy metal. I mean, take Lars Ulrich out of the Metallica equation, and you don't have Metallica.
You really don't. I mean, he is a musician, like, first and foremost. Like, he came up with a drum style that everyone going forward after that, like, has aped, whether or not they're better or faster or whatever you want to call it. Like, he's very much an innovator.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. He, the fact that he was just like a Motorhead banger, one of the biggest Motorhead fans in the world, following the band around, and you can hear that sort of appreciation of Filthy Animal Taylor's drums in everything Metallica in them early days, and as you say, he kind of, with Kill 'Em All, they kind of invented a genre all on their own.
Yeah. For real. I never we did get to play with Motorhead one time, but I never got to meet Lemmy. I was a big bummer when he passed. I was like, oh damn it, I've never got to meet Willie Nelson or Billy Gibbons, and I never got to meet Lemmy. But you toured with him a lot, didn't you?
We didn't really tour with them. We always just met up with festivals and got to hang out with them quite a lot.
Yeah.
And going back to your thing, I never met Billy Gibbons, but I met Dusty Hill a few years ago at
rest in peace.
Hellfest. So I was devastated last week when I heard the news about him dying. I did meet Willie Nelson as well, because I used to work for a manager. I actually had to restring his old guitar, the one with all the holes in it and everything.
Damn.
Because I worked for Jules Holland's manager, and he appeared on this TV show over here in the UK called Later with Jules Holland. And Willie Nelson's guitar tech came in and said, look, I've got to take Willie to do something else this afternoon. Can someone here restring this guitar? Gave us a pack of strings. I said, yeah, I'll do it. And didn't realise how iconic that guitar was at the time.
God damn.
But, what was we saying about the Motorhead? We just used to bump into those guys at festivals and things. Never really actually toured together. But the first time we met Lemmy, we'd seen them play at the Astoria in London, and there was a big after-show party going on in this place called Gossips, in this really seedy little downstairs dive bar in Soho in London. Was there, the place is crowded. Lemmy and Mickey D come walking through the crowd, and our drummer Chris is standing there. Me and him are talking, having a pint, and Mickey D turns around and knocks Chris's drink out of his hand. So Chris is like, what the fuck, dude? And Mickey's really apologetic. I'm sorry. And Chris was like, well, you going to buy me another drink? And Lemmy just leaned in and went, he's a tight cunt. He won't buy you fucking anything. I was like, right, okay. That's an icebreaker. So, we always sort of met up with Lemmy after that. Not long after that, we did our first US tour in 2002, what I was saying about. We were playing, I don't know if you remember, a venue called Satyricon in Portland.
Oh, yeah.
And right outside, you got a sort of big parking lot, and there's another venue across the road. And I think we saw the tour bus outside, and we knew that Motorhead were touring with Morbid Angel at the time. It was like, it'll be typical. We're playing here tonight, same day as Motorhead are in town. And with that, we opened the van door, and there's Lemmy walking across the parking lot. So we called out to him, hey, Lemmy, how you doing? And he's like, nice to hear an English accent. And we're like, yeah, where are you off to? And he was going to this, I think it was called the Rose Garden or something, some strip club in Portland. He's like, hey, I'm going to my favourite strip bar. Do you want to come and join me? And we literally sort of walked across there and joined him and sat in this strip bar in Portland for the afternoon with Lemmy buying a strip.
The Magic Garden. Yeah, that's what it was.
That's the Magic Garden. That's the one, yeah. I don't know where the name came from because it wasn't that magic, but...
Oh, yeah, I know. You walk in. Ugh, God. The last time I went into the Magic Garden, walked in, there was kind of an older lady just sitting on the stage that's right by the door when you walk in, and she just had her legs spread, just laying on the floor, not dancing, nothing, just like, look at it, and three old timers just sitting there leaning on the rail, just looking at it, and I walked over to the bar with my two friends, and I was like, oh, we'll take 3 PBRs. And I just sat there drinking them, and I got about halfway through my beer, and I was like, y'all want to get the fuck out of here?
Yeah, I'm not sure. You're not sure whether you're in a strip club or a murder scene.
Right, yeah, and we walked out, and it wasn't until we walked out that it hit me. I was like, why it was so weird. There was no music playing in there. It was dead silent.
Yeah, I think that's why Lemmy liked it, because it's a break from the volume of being on stage every night.
Oh man.
But yeah.
Well, if you play enough, festivals and you tour long enough and everything, you get to the point where you pretty much see every band you ever wanted to see. There's only a handful of bands that I never got to see. I never got to see the Hives, but I'm going to see them on Halloween. I've already got my ticket. I never got to see Prince, and that's kind of heartbreaking, but that's okay. Is there any band that you haven't seen that you think that you're holding out hope for?
Believe it or not, I've never seen Deep Purple live.
Wow, really?
Which is incredible, because I know they have played at festivals like Hellfest but always been on different days from us being there and things. And it's just never worked out that I've got to see Deep Purple play live. So that's the one that really sticks out for me. Everybody else I've either seen and have loved or been a bit disappointed by, especially recently when you sort of start to see some of the more heritage acts and it's not quite what you imagined it to be. It's like we saw Slade at Sweden Rock a few years ago. And they were but with no Noddy Holder and sort of makeshift guy singing. It was basically Dave Hill and Don Powell from the band, no Jim Lee. Yeah. So it was half of Slade, and it was a bit of a letdown, to be honest. And I felt the same way. I mean, I know this is kind of like, blasphemy to say, but the last time I saw Blue Oyster Cult, it just seemed like they was going through the motions and really sort of didn't have the energy for it anymore. So that's a real shame.
Yeah, because I know it's just the original two singers are the only ones left. We played a show with them one time, and I was rather impressed. But you never know. Every band has a bad show. Every tour has a dud.
I might support them on a bad night. I'd like to think so. So I'm very keen to see them again. But no, I mean, apart from Deep Purple, there's not anyone I can really. I mean, I never saw the original Ramones, who I wish I'd seen.
Oh man, that would be cool.
Yeah, and I never saw sort of the original sort of Danzig lineup with John Christ and Chuck Biscuits and Eerie Von. So I kind of missed that boat. But other than that, I've been lucky, as you say. When you tour the world, you sort of eventually you kind of come across everybody and get to see everybody. So yeah, I've been fortunate. I've lived a good life. And that's what 26 years of being an Orange Goblin has afforded me.
Isn't that rad? I do like Danzig's current lineup. Is he still playing with Johnny Kelly and Tommy Victor?
I think Tommy Victor, yeah.
I mean, I hear what you're saying about seeing that classic lineup, but those guys are no slouches, man. The last time I saw Danzig, I think it was in Gothenburg, whatever that festival is out there, Metal Town, something like that.
Oh yeah. I forget what it is, the one in Gothenburg.
I know, I should know this.
But yeah, I should. The booking agent.
It was incredible, though, because I've seen Danzig in the States, and he can kind of have a bit of an attitude. Everybody knows that. But whenever I've seen him in Europe, I feel like he leaves that attitude behind, and he's just really gracious to be there and puts on a much better show than any time I've seen him in the States.
He's always been really sweet to us as well. Really nice guy. He invited us to support Danzig a couple of times. Once at the Forum in London, once at the Astoria in London. We did the Blackest of the Black tour, or whatever it was called over here. And he was just an absolute sweetheart. And I got to meet his manager, Craig McDonald, a few times in LA and hang out with him as well. And he's cool as well. So I've never got a bad word to say about Danzig. You hear all these people saying, yeah, the guy's got attitude, but I've never seen it. So.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, he pulled a famous stunt in Austin where he wouldn't go on stage until he had a cup of French onion soup and a Wendy's chicken sandwich, and it was kind of a little tantrum or something like that. And then by the time he went on, I think they had time to play like 4 songs before the festival had to cut the power, or they were going to get fined by the city for breaking the noise ordinance, and the festival cut the power on him. And he lost his shit, man. It was crazy.
That's such a bizarre, random thing to want as well, isn't it? French onion soup.
It was weird. I don't know why. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna tell another one. I don't care. I'm not gonna tell. I'm not gonna say who told this story, but apparently Danzig has to have this like $80 like lemon drink every day. It's like some weird Japanese $80 like lemon drink, but he puts it in a red Solo cup, and then he just kind of leaves it laying around, and he gets really like it's then like his crew's job to keep track of where his crazy $80 limit drink is. Hey, nobody's perfect. Everybody's got their quirks, but
Yeah.
I've never had a weird habit like that. I guess I couldn't afford it.
No, me neither. I'm now trying to think of what it'd be if I'm ever going to pull a show because I'm not happy with my ride or something. What are the sort of really bizarre demands I'm going to have? I'm going to have to sit and think about that.
Oh my Lord. Well, man, it's always really cool whenever you see a band stick together, as the same lineup forever, but it's really rare, and I know you lost your guitar player a few years in and everything, but Martin decided to walk away and broke my heart. But I mean, it seems like an amicable, decision for everybody and everything like that. But it's like whenever Trivet took his exit from the band back in the day, it hurts. It feels pain. I know it wasn't on bad terms or anything like that. But what was that like, losing a brother like that?
I mean, it was particularly hard for me, I think, because obviously Martin and I were really close friends before the band even existed. We sort of played football together when we was teenagers, and that's how we got to meet. We bonded over a mutual love of heavy metal and comedy and stuff like that. So, Martin was my best man at my wedding. I was his best man at his wedding. It's a really close friendship. But I'd known for some time that he was kind of getting a little bit disorientated with just not being able to get the time off work to tour. And he felt that he was letting Chris, Joe and I down. And I was like, no, it's not like that at all. He's like, yeah, but when you can't shake that feeling that you're sort of letting your mates down. And he let us know, I think it was January 2019, that he was going to be leaving. And we'd always said that Orange Goblin is one of those bands that if any one of the four of us quit, then that'd be the end of it. We weren't going to carry on. And so he was aware of that. He said, look, I know we've always said that, but I don't want you guys to stop. He said, you've got momentum now that you've worked hard for. He said, so I want you have my blessing to continue, and I want you to sort of consider taking on Harry as the new bass player, because, we was happy to accommodate whoever he suggested, really, if we was going to do it. So it as you say, it was all amicable, and Martin would have left sooner had COVID not struck, and we'd been able to sort of see out all the commitments that we'd already had booked in 2020. Obviously that didn't happen due to the pandemic. So Martin hung around for a little bit, and then this year when we rescheduled those live stream shows, he said, look, I'm going to bow out after these because it's not fair to keep Harry stringing along, saying, oh, when's Martin finally going to quit, sort of thing. So those last two shows with Martin happened in June, and we still talk to him on a daily basis, still have a laugh with him, talk about football all the time and what have you. So it's just, as you say, it was a bit of a shock, because I always thought Orange Goblin would be one of those bands that, like you say, have that steady lineup and nothing changes, but obviously it does. And you've only got bands like Clutch these days. I think are the only one now that I can think of that haven't had any change.
I can't really think of another one off the top of my head. No, Mastodon.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Still
fair enough. Yeah.
That's it.
So it hasn't changed anything for us. We're still positive for the future. We're in discussions with a record label at the moment about signing a new deal and working on new material for a possible 2022 release. So
that's great to hear, man. Seriously, I'm just so glad that you're like picking up and keeping going through all this. It's been like, 2020 sucks, don't get me wrong, but 2021 has been the real kick in the dick for me. This year is just crazy with all the tours. Like I don't know exactly when this one's gonna air, but we'll see. As of right now, all of our tour dates are still on, but like it's every hour something comes in where some other band, like Limp Bizkit, just canceled all their massive tours. Like, I think like Counting Crows, Fallout, but everybody's just dropping like flies. But then you got guys out there like Jason Isbell who are just pushing through and requiring crowds to be vaxxed and all this stuff. It's like I used to say, like, take it one day at a time, but now I have to take it like 1 hour at a time. It's
that's it.
Yeah,
I kind of agree with what you said. At least in 2020 it was kind of clear and we all had some direction of what was going on, but now since things have been opening, we're relieved to sort of have shows back and the possibility of touring to be happening again, but there's no real clear advice from our governments or whoever's in charge as to to what the situation really is. So things are changing on a weekly basis, and the idea of trying to tour across Europe at the moment is non-existent, just because the regulations vary so much from country to country. We're fortunate here that things are open again at full capacity, and this weekend we're going to Bloodstock Festival to play the main stage on Sunday alongside the likes of Saxon and Judas Priest.
Awesome.
But I've got a feeling that when some of these events where you've got 20,000 people spending 4 days together in a field, and they see a spike in cases and deaths, they're gonna point the finger at the music industry again and shut everything down.
Yeah. Yep. God.
Yeah.
I have no comment, but I will say that if this, because we're about to be on the road supporting Primus for their Farewell to Kings tour, and if this tour falls through, like I will officially be a broken man. I don't I don't know how else to put it. I'm gonna need some serious counseling.
That tour is incredible, right? And you got Wolfmother on there and Primus doing a set.
Wolfmother had to drop off. They're not allowed to leave Australia. Yeah, everything's fucked.
Oh, fuck, man. Well, yeah, fingers crossed for you guys. And, I mean, getting to see Primus play Farewell to Kings every night is going to be incredible.
I know. It's fucking awesome. I was really looking forward to touring with Wolfmother because Andrew was a real sweet guy. And also the rhythm section of Wolfmother is the rhythm section from The Vines. Our good friend Hamish, playing the drums. He would always take care of us whenever we were in Australia. And the bass player of The Vines, too. And it was just an incredible lineup, great band. It was going to be... Yeah, Primus called us up out of nowhere just because they were like, we're going to do this Rush tribute, and we just want, a really great American rock and roll band to, open the show and everything. So it was really flattering to get that offer, almost 2 years ago.
That's well deserved.
Yeah, well, thank you. But yeah, at this point, I'm just like, can we just do this tour so it's behind us now? We can finally move on. I feel like I've been in limbo for over a year. It's nuts.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a lot of bands that sort of their career was just about to kick off at the start of 2020, released a great album, getting great press, and then all of a sudden you can't hit the road. And now that album's almost 2 years old, and you're like, what the fuck happened to my career?
Yeah.
So you've got to feel for some people in this industry. So I feel for a lot of people in this industry, but particularly bands that, hadn't had a chance to establish themselves and basically start again.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, you've got your hand in multiple pots because you're booking. I mean, you've been booking bands for a long time, but you rarely meet a booking agent that actually got in the van and knows what it's like to drive around some crazy ass routing that somebody who doesn't get in a van for a living created for them. That's I don't think a lot of people understand that. They're like, how come your tour routing's so crazy? It's like, it's because the guy that booked it has never gotten in a van and driven anywhere in his life. So you're one of the rare ones, man. How do you approach booking?
I think that's how I fell into it. I mean, I got into a conversation with a booking agent called Paul Ryan that still works at United Talent Agency and books some of the biggest bands in the world. And
he also used to be in Cradle of Filth.
He did indeed, first album. And he said, I mean, I knew Paul from back then anyway, because after he left Cradle of Filth, he joined a band called The Blood Divine, who toured supporting Orange Goblin in about 95, going back a long, long time. So Paul and I go back a long way. But he said to me, he's like, have you ever tried your hand at being a booking agent? Because I've done tour managing and stuff and looked after even like bands like Scorpion Child came to Europe and I tour managed there. And then he said, have you ever considered being a booking agent? And I was like, no, not really. But, it was something I knew I'd be able to do because I'd booked a lot of shows for Orange Goblin back in the early days and things and kind of knew how to set up a show at the end of the night and what money was due and that sort of stuff. And then the more I thought about it, the more I thought it makes sense. It's like I've played every toilet up and down the UK. I've been to pretty much most clubs and festivals around Europe. So, it was a no-brainer, really. And then I spent 5 years at UTA, as you well know. And last year when COVID struck, I'd met this guy called Jules Chenoweth, and he'd floated the idea of starting our own booking agency down here in Cornwall. And with everything on hold and the pandemic at its peak, we kind of felt like, well, there's no time like the present. And here we are, set it up. managed to take a lot of my clients across with me from UTA to Route 1 booking, Fu Manchu and Earthless and Orange Goblin, obviously, Voivod, Shooter Jennings, nice sort of mixtures of genres and styles, and touch wood, it's going great. And as the world's opening up, we're getting busier and busier, and it's a really exciting venture to actually be my own boss for once.
Do you still get like bands that get cranky at you with the routings or anything like that?
Yeah, yeah, they do. Sometimes it's unavoidable because you get bands that they want to play every festival there is, and their demands are sometimes a little bit unrealistic. So you have to kind of do your best to accommodate that. But sometimes it's unavoidable if you've got to do an overnight drive to somewhere.
Yeah.
But that was one of the things that used to piss me off when I weren't booking Orange Goblin tours. It'd be like, you go to a beautiful festival and you don't have any time to enjoy it. You literally come off stage 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You got to get straight back in the van and go to the next place, and it is frustrating. And if people don't pay attention to those small details about getting your rider right and making sure that the hotels are booked accordingly and things like that, it can have a big impact on a musician that's hanging on to their sanity by a thread as it is.
Yeah.
So you've got to get everything right for them, and that I can relate to that because I've been that guy in the band that needs to get a certain amount of sleep every night, or I need to eat at a certain time during the day. So yeah, I try and do my best to accommodate my artists as I would expect it to be,
Yes, I'm sure it feels like a fool's errand sometimes. But it's booking the States is one thing, and I feel like, or playing the States too is a lot different just because it's one country, and sure you have to deal with differences. But like, what are the challenges of booking a European tour? Because I mean that's just so many different countries. Sometimes they don't even speak English, and things like that. Yeah, it's just wild.
Yeah, I mean, in the past, it was a lot simpler than it's going to be going forward, especially for us UK bands, because obviously we've got Brexit now where we're not part of the European Union anymore.
Jesus.
So that's still a bit of an unknown quantity for us going forward, because the government are still in talks with other governments to try and thrash out deals over whether we're going to need to have working permits or visas and things like that. And luckily, the bulk of European countries have said no, UK artists can travel without a visa or work permit for a certain period. And I think it's something like 30 days that you get to spend in each country. And I mean, no one tours more than 30 days in any one country anyway.
Right.
But Europe is a challenge in that you've got different currencies and different border controls, things like that. But size-wise, it's not much different to the US. And as you've got some drives in the US are retarded, like they are here in Europe. So that's a case of the agents trying to get it right. If you've got the only place you could possibly stop off for a show is Luxembourg, it might not be the best idea to do, but you try your best. I mean, I love touring Europe. I love that sort of how busy you can be in such a small space of time. You can get away doing sort of 10 to 12 shows in Germany. You can do 5 or 6 shows in France. You can do 3 or 4 in Spain, and then you get to sort of see a bit of everywhere you go. And then if you do your routing sucks, but you have to fly into somewhere like Greece to do an Athens show. It's only like 2 hours on a plane, and then you fly back and meet up with your bus again. So anything's possible here in Europe. It's quite straightforward. So yeah, I don't know. Like I say, it's always been quite easy for me being from here, and it might be different being an American looking into what Europe is, but that's how we feel about the States. We've always thought it's like much more logistical headache than touring here. So I don't know. Like I say, Brexit's going to throw up a few curveballs, but other than that, I don't think it's changing.
God. Well, Ben, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate your point of view, and always loved your band, and it's always a pleasure to meet you. I can't wait to see you again. I got a feeling it's going to happen next year. I hope. Maybe
Hopefully,
2023,
yeah.
but we'll see.
The feeling is very mutual, mate. Big fan of your band, big fan of your podcast, and look forward to seeing you and meeting up for a drink very soon.
Hell yeah, man. Well, I always ask my my musical guests if they want to play any songs. Is there an Orange Goblin song you want everybody to hear? I'd love to play anything you want, but yeah, I'd love Big Black.
There may be a few people who don't know Orange Goblin, so let's give them the song that we always end our set with every night and play Red Tide Rising.
Absolutely. so much for tuning into The Highway this week. A big shout out to Reverend Guitars, Railhammer Pickups, and Earthquaker Devices. If you liked what you heard, you can follow where you can follow, subscribe where you can subscribe, and if you want to go one step further, you can support us on Patreon at The Highway with Kyle Shutt. For a few bucks a month, you can help us keep this party going, get early access to next week's episode, and even get yourself a shout out.